We can continue, but I wanna touch on a couple things here. Which, speaking of storytelling, right? We're sharing tales of animal ownership, about upgrading life to unlife because it's it's just that easy. Um, the methods of being a control, a damage, well, not a damage dealer. I had that on the brain when we were talking about DD versus DPS as the explanation for what you do. But for presentation of a story, see, Alzi's confirming right from the Art of War. As we are sharing our stories, that is life experience. That is adventure. We are teaching each other life lessons by sharing that knowledge. That's also why in a role-playing game you get experience points. You level up. You learn new things as you've gone out into the world and you've experienced it. That's also why you can get experience or the equivalent, if you want to run milestones, from downtime, crafting, carousing, finding information, reading some books. Because it's a distillation and or a reflection of who we are in our real world, whatever you want to consider that. Hello, Diadems. Mordecai wants his money back for his upgrade. Turns out it's full of malware and other such hazards that take him over. Error, error, error. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. I don't know. Would that make Jade kind of like 2B? Interesting. So as you're crafting an adventure, I do want to point out that the DMG is an excellent source for not just adventure creation, but if you want to write a story, a short story, you want to write a novel, you want to do something along those lines, this is an excellent way to go about it. There's a lot of things to keep in mind, right? Here's we're going to hold your hand and take you through the process of creating an adventure. And some of this may look familiar because we've drawn on this before. Do you want to make an event-based adventure? Do you want to make a mystery? Intrigue? What's a framing event for a circumstance? We come over here, roll percentile. Our story begins with a migration of monsters. Oh, okay. And so you start there and you say, well, where are the monsters migrating from? To? Why are they migrating? Is it seasonal? Is there destruction of their homeland? What's going on? Plot twists. Character objectives. And by the way, it is in here as well when it comes to your villains. Do you want to run an adventure or to write a story that has no villain? It's perfectly doable. In fact, we made a campaign with no villain. It was a challenge. I believe that Bobicus had sort of called out, since we're making different adventures. Bobicus called out, can we make a story that doesn't have a BBEG, a big bad evil guy? And we did. Do you have many villains? Are there multiple ones that are kind of layered in? Don't let Grandpa sign the blood pact. They rope him into all kinds of contracts and malware. I think a mass migration of Umber Hulks would be cool. Massive clouds of winged hulks swarming through the countryside. Phew. Yeah, and you thought locusts were bad. think of Umber Hulks, which are these very big beetles. We're having a mass migration. Oh my goodness. It would almost be like the coconut crab migration, which you all can look up. If you want to see something interesting, look up the coconut crab. And so just imagine if coconut crabs were 8 feet tall and doing what you see them doing in pictures. Umber. There is for kind of Umbra, there is like a shadow Hulk. So what I want to do for this coconut crabs are nightmarish. Oh, you see them swarming, and oh my goodness. Yeah. Everything you need to write an adventure is here in the DMG. Something that we're going to do that isn't necessarily... I mean, it could be hinted at, or it could be inferred we could draw inspiration from. But what I'd like to do with the type of material we've generated so far is to create a campaign that runs on a timeline. And an example of this, I brought it up earlier with the Tomb of Annihilation adventure diary that we keep on Discord. Tomb of Annihilation is an example of this kind of storytelling. There's something happening. It's going to happen over X amount of time. The players may not know. And if the players succeed before then, they succeed. The players could all be alive, but by the time, 5 minutes to midnight and suddenly it's midnight, even if the players are alive, the story has ended, whether they even know it or not. The villain achieved the goal. I don't know. It doesn't even have to be villainous. The escaped princess managed to find a ship and sail off to another kingdom. It's not villainous, but if you're out there to try and find the princess and bring her back, that opportunity is gone. And so the game can very much end despite being alive, finding treasure, and all this other stuff. Now, could it continue? Yeah, it could continue, but the consequences of the events are going to carry forward and are going to be a foundation for playing some kind of a follow-up game. The way the characters talk in CR in Campaign 1, I can see where one would make that mistake. Oh, because Elsie says Mercer is capable of error? Unpopular opinion. Blargle saying Matt Mercer is hot. Popular opinion. There's an ogre. There's a ZFG ogre. You know what? And because you can see it on display in front of you, you can learn, you can adapt, and you can take these styles and, make it your own. Make it the Coffee Cat brand storytelling style. And yeah, Corrido, when you can draw on your real life experiences, that's what can really drive home a story. Alzie's invoking her Grognard status. I was fighting Umber Hulks when Critical Role was a twinkle in Mercer's eye. Alzy's going old school. Long in the feather. Long in the neck feathers. So what I'd like to do for you all is to present a storytelling style that is a timeline, where we as the DM take information that we know is going to happen and we plot it out for ourselves. And then the story will begin at a certain point, and it's up to the players, if you have informed them that there is some kind of a countdown or a pressure. In Tomb of Annihilation, and this is not spoiling anything that's not made obvious in the first 5 minutes of playing the game, you have a time pressure because there is a device called the Soulmonger that needs to be destroyed because it is mongering souls, and that, you know, that upsets people. You have an ultimate timeline because the quest giver is succumbing to the Soulmonger. Now, the quest giver doesn't necessarily know how long she has, but it is a kind of a wasting existence. And so the sooner you find the Soulmonger, the better, not just for the quest giver, but for everyone in Faerun. Because as long as the Soulmonger exists, people don't get to move on to their final reward, whether that's in the heavens or the hells. Millions of people are counting on you to find the Soulmonger and put it down as soon as possible. And that's the contention, right? We want to explore, right? We have this whole peninsula, this jungle peninsula filled with wonder and treasure. And yet we have a presumably moral compunction to find this thing as soon as possible, to cut through the underbrush, to cut through the guff, and find this thing to save the souls of people in Faerun. It could take 30 days. It could take 60. It could take a year. But in that time, the Soulmonger is, and any associated elements have their own ideas, their own plans. Eating souls is doing something. And if it takes a year to find the Soulmonger, by that point, what has happened after the consumption of the souls has begun? The players may not be aware that anything behind the scenes is changing. But as a DM, we're tracking the world and what is going on in it. I miss Titan's Grave. I like Will Wheaton's games. Was that something he showed off on Tabletop, Alzy? Corda Wants More Harmon Quest? Yeah, that's the one that was animated, if I recall correctly. Alzy apparently also wants more Harmon Quest. And I honestly, I wish that I could get into the conversations about Critical Role, but it is maybe it's a shame on me, especially as someone who presents D&D content. But I haven't watched it, so I pick up your all's opinions and your words as I listen to them and read them, and I see what you all are saying about it. So I kind of get a contact buzz from it. Blargle says, I want to do this with Storm King's Thunder and the Vonendod big robot. You want to create a timeline for it? I like the timeline that Monster of the Week uses. Basically, it breaks up a day from dawn to midnight, asking what would happen if the players never came here. Yeah, you can micromanage a timeline just like that, Alzy. So we have a new chatter here that is offering a tribute, but I'll have you know that we keep this channel PG-13 and we also keep it respectable, and so that is doing neither. They have a podcast if you don't have the time to watch but time to listen. Corrida, would that I could. I am very busy. I am a very busy person. I appreciate it. I almost bit my tongue. I appreciate it, but it can be a challenge to find some extra time to do that sort of stuff. All right, so what do we know about what do we know about the circumstances that we've developed now over the course of 2 weeks? We know that ultimately, from the NPCs, the NPCs and the villains were derived from the player characters. That there is an NPC who is slowly turning into a beholder. There is a villain who is already mutated. We know the Lomosh region was laid low by such a godly being and reduced to sand and ash. The new redeveloped area is facing such a disaster again. Keeping a couple of these major points in line, we can see what is the end of the timeline. What will that be? NPC converts to second beholder. NPC finds beholder villain. The two, however you want to look at it, merge, have a ritual, produce a godly offspring. Whether it's reproduction or some sort of a reincarnation, something along those lines. The TUE rebirth the godly beholder that destroyed the region. The beholder needs time to amass strength and influence. In a surviving hidden temple. The beholder destroys. So it would almost, think of it this way. In our concept, in our minds as DMs, we have this Arabian Peninsula inspired area. We have this Upper Lower Egypt inspired area. Here is a sunken temple that is being rebuilt. And so imagine, if you will, this sort of God-spawned beholder ends up here. And almost like the eye of Providence hovers over this ancient restored ziggurat that was done so because of the hubris of the Dragonborn. Now, are they full-on beholders or are they humanoid beholders? So they would be... beholders are aberrations. They may not necessarily be full-on beholders, but we could describe them as having been influenced by, mutated by, having aspects of. So using this method, we're just creating, this is, if nothing happens and we're just telling a story to ourselves, this is what's occurring. The beholder once again petrifies and shatters the lands. To be split and hidden once more. Now here we have a nice epic, you know, this is like our endgame timeline. If we come here to prior, or I guess that this would almost be the preface timeline. NPC is chased through the desert by bandits and finds the second passage and second eye. And honestly, even before that, villain, similar circumstances. If you recall, when we were making our villain, oh, that is our dungeon. Aberration bent on corruption or domination. Contact a lost deity. The villain is destroyed if it speaks its true name. It was a soldier standard bearer who, in this case, was in a similar fashion. The locals had chased, had sort of ambushed his troop and chased him, and this is where he found some comfort and solace, but was drawn ever and ever into this like Temple of the Eye or whatever you'd want to call it. Yeah, you can go very wrong with a fireball. That is true, especially if it's wild magic. So, villain is marching out from, we could say Findu to keep the peace, beset by bandits who slaughter the patrol. Villain takes shelter in a nearby ruin, finding the first passage, all while dodging traps and such. Takes the eye and begins to mutate. We don't have, days or months or years even yet. All of this could be taking place 5 years, 10 years before the start of the campaign. But by ordering the series of events in this way, we know as a DM, what is our direction? Where are we going? And this is also a good way to sprinkle in details of what's happened from the past into the present. You can almost use it like a checklist, as the PCs then are following on the heels of the NPC, of the villain. Think almost Diablo 2. If you're familiar with the storyline, we as the players of Diablo 2 are supposed to be hot on the heels of the character in Diablo 1 who shoved the soul crystal right into his own forehead to try and contain it. So we see the Dark Traveler or whatever it's called, just barely before it continues on, leaving monsters in its wake. But we also get a glimpse of what happened before. There's nothing we can do about it, but we can try and race this carrier of Diablo. East. Always into the east. There you go, Blargle. I felt, I did feel, what was the follower's name? I forget was it Matthias or something? But I always did feel bad for the narrator, who was the crony or the minion of the character that became the Dark Wanderer. No, but I'm not familiar with those events, so hopefully that's not a spoiler for anything, Corrida. What about second levels? I was thinking maybe Flaming... Okay, so if you're getting some good spell advice, awesome. And thank you all for helping Orc come up with this concept. Marius, that's right, Marius. Diablo and Kingdom Hearts 4 confirmed. Okay. All right, well, I haven't played any of them. I just want to make sure... this wasn't, an oopsie. That suddenly, like a big plot bomb of the recent one. Because, I'm guilty of getting excited and offering a spoiler now and again. So NPC is chased through the desert by bandits, finds second passage and second eye. Slinks off into the desert and begins the transformation, as well as recruitment of cultists to restore the... Oh, this could even be to restore the temple to an appropriate level for the rebirth of the all-seeing God. We pick up the story as stream's been buffering hard for me since the beginning, but I think it's probably on my end because I have terrible internet. Stream is dead? Oh my goodness. It's alive! You know what? It's back though? Okay. Yeah, I'm glad because my internet seems good. I don't know if it's Twitch has been twitchy lately or what's been going on. You know, it's been a big weekend with the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest, and there's the new there's that one new Sekiro has come out, and a lot of other esports stuff, and so I don't know if their servers are getting you know, overloaded or what's going on. Yeah, Twitch has been super twitchy. Hola, broken Twitch stream nerds. Hi, GM Vault, welcome. But yeah, Twitch has been twitchy. Thank you for all for sticking around through it, though. All right, so we pick up the story as so actually, wait, the slink off is more for the villain. This, though, for the NPC's chase through the desert. In this case, NPC returns to Great Library with the eye, but eventually has to take a remote job to avoid detection as the mutation becomes unable to be hidden. So here we pick up the story as the NPC has whatever you want. If you think it should take a month, 2 months, if you think it should take a year, you can you set the time limit as the DM. If you want more of a faster paced, little higher pressure series of events that's going to happen one way or the other without the, you know, without the PC's influence, we can say something like the NPC has, if a beholder has 10 eyes, we can say, but some of it's already been spent with the first manifestation. So we'll say the NPC has 90 days before total transformation. Or if you want to say it's a week per eye, right? And then because maybe the other 20 days or so is going to be going through the desert to find the other beholder so that they could, you know, kind of hook up and rebirth this this god that people cherish, but they don't understand that it was responsible for the creation of the desert. You know, with its fierce presence. It was maybe it's revered as a god, but it was created as a weapon. Like a biological one. 9 minutes, not 90 days. Oh, that's a very fast-paced campaign then. Fast-paced, high pressure is how we live in Mesomasca. See, you all don't necessarily have a timeline. Things are happening around you, yes. But it's not necessarily the world is going to end in, you know, in 3 days, like a Majora's Mask kind of a thing. However, the longer that you do not solve this mystery or find a way to counteract it, more people are going to succumb to vampirism or are going to succumb to being turned into these like fae-like possessed creatures. Hey, and there's a notification. Apparently, I just started restreaming again. Huzzah. But no. Yeah, blindness, deafness can wreck casters. Oh my goodness. I mean, really, it can wreck anyone because it's a combo spell, right? You can deafen casters, or you can blind fighters or other melee combatants. You know, non-magical. Blindness, deafness can be a very powerful spell. So we make an arbitrary time of the NPC is 70 days before total transformation. Or if we say that one has already taken place, then 63, because the first 7 have already manifested with her, you know, with her odd eye, right? And now we can begin the timeline of on these days this NPC is doing this thing. And if you want to go through and make 63 columns, if you want to do this in calculator, you certainly may. And that could even be a way to help organize your information, right? Because you can have columns. In fact, we can even set something like that up. You know, so here we have our days, and then we go NPC, villain, something else. It could be some natural effect. Because you're in a desert and for some reason every 8 to 10 days, the winds shift in a way that if you're in the dunes, then you effectively are pinned down for a day or two. Or you really risk hurting yourself or becoming lost if you do try and fight the sandstorm. So there could be some sort of natural phenomena. And we can roll dice, we could do whatever. So here, we have our handy dandy dice roller. If it's an 8, 9, or 10, then we'll just roll a d3. So, on the 8th day, a sandstorm. And that sandstorm will last for 3 days. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a sandstorm that lasts for 2 days. Another 2, so that's going to be 9 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sandstorm that lasts for 3 days. And so you're producing effects that are happening around the world that could, because this is a sandbox that we've created. Our adventurers might go from town to town. They could even try and shortcut and just sail. Maybe it's more quick to travel on the water. Could be risky, right? We mentioned there's pirates. And so by building these timelines, we can see as time progresses what is where. If this is taking place in the springtime, and the river floods. We can account for that in our timeline. You know, so here we have, we'll call this desert. Here we'll call this river. And at some point in time, there's going to be some big floods as spring progresses. The snows in the mountains melt, and it surges down and spreads. It spreads through the river, creating some dangerous rapids, or, you know, maybe certain monsters come out when the waters are high. There's all sorts of campaign elements that we can link to this. And if we say it's, you know, once every 10 days, roll a d10, or we could do a d12. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a flash flood. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Flash flood. 10. This is very generous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Flash flood. We can come up here, and if you want to build an encounter table instead of a timeline, you certainly may, right? If it's something that's ever present, you know, on the seas, we can build an encounter table that, you know, we roll a d20, or we can do percentiles or whatever. We roll a d20, and if we roll a 3 or a 4, pirates attack. Because pirates may not be seasonal. Pirates could just be out there, and you have a random chance of running into it. Whereas some of these other things might be a little bit more cyclical. If you also want to track things on a timeline, you can say that this is a... because this is deeply religious, there's probably going to be things like weekends or holidays that are built in, right? So the weekend came about as a quasi-holiday because Saturdays and Sundays were the days of rest for Jewish and Christian workers. And now Muslims take their day of rest on Friday. But, you know, Friday through Sunday, you know, more of a weekend feel. And we can ask ourselves, all right, so here, what is our time off? What is it that we need to do in order to create a calendar? And we can say that because the religions are around nature, around dragons, and around this great being, this great eye, this eye of providence, this beholder, that everyone worships but no one quite understands. Maybe there's 3 days off, but it is broken up through... a week isn't 7 days. A week is 12. And so we can break it down and say, because there's this triumvirate of dragons, nature, and this all-seeing God. You know, 12 is divided by 3 into 4. And so on the 4th day is a day off to recognize something. Or we could even have it rotate and say that there's actually going to be, you know, we need a day off ourselves to be ourselves. So it's almost like a day of self-appreciation, where it doesn't have to just be in worship. And what we could do then is take the concept, you know, that there is a 12-day cycle, but we could sort of float it through a calendar. So here we'll do work days. And so 1, 2, 3, 4 we have Dragon Day. So we'll call that D Day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this will be I Day. 9, 10, 11, 12. And this will end up being Nature Day. And this cycle can continue all the way down, right? And so we know that on these days, there may be certain, merchants that are closed, or all of them are. It could be that on certain days, if you wish as a DM to cycle this through, that maybe certain holy magics are more powerful. But then what we could have is this floating time, that there's a personal day, a day that we take off. So this is technically a week, right? Every 12 days. 2, 3, and we just continue this down. However, because we take these personal days, we get kind of a 2-day weekend in this 12-day cycle of a personal day. However, in the following week, the personal day isn't on Dragon Day, but the personal day is on Eye Day. And then we come down and the personal day is on Nature Day. And then we come back, and here, maybe this is sort of, this is manifesting almost like a once a month. Like, we have a very short work time. However, everyone loves it because we get another personal day right on the heels. And so if we want to do some shopping in the world, and it's coming up to day 38 and 39, we have this 2-day window before this kind of once a month, very short work week. Hello, Emmy. Welcome. 12 days isn't a week? Well, so we're conceptualizing what a week, a unit of time that is cyclical in a calendar, we call it a week. That's smaller than a month. But by here, we're getting sort of work days, or we can call this like weekends. And so we can just go through and call this is just work. And you might even find that, people who worship nature will take Nature Day, but they may not take I Day or D Day. Now, they'll always take the personal day, because that's universal. That's intrinsic to us. But now we're establishing this environment that has these cycles, that has these timelines. And as the adventure continues, we can reference and say, all right, so you traveled for 3 days from Findu to Risha. This is we're starting on day 1, right? Which is, I know it's in slot 2, but just work with me here. If it takes 3 days, so 1, 2, 3, well, we know that if they're on the river, there's a flash flood, and the day that they get to Risha is Dragon Day. And so there may be certain stores that are closed, certain religious ceremonies and access to maybe, some sort of community welfare, such as like public celebrations or feasts could be going on. Maybe in Risha specifically for Dragon Day, because maybe it has a lot of dragon worshippers. You have to wear a colorful headscarf that represents, it could be any of the colors. You can have coins woven into it to appear shiny and metallic. You can have ribbons or sequins to represent chromatic. And maybe because it's this headscarf, you can have eyes painted on the side. So for this day, we are worshiping and celebrating our draconic heritage, because that's another underlying theme in the story that we've developed. And for a DM, setting up a calendar like this makes things so much easier, because all you have to do is reference what is going on around the world, whether it's 200 miles away in the Lomosh Dunes, or it's you want to make a tide chart, you can make a tide chart if you really want. But the major things that are happening here, if we want to then go to holidays, Maybe there's only 2 or 3 over the course of the entire campaign. And we make up that because this is springtime, there's a big holiday, and this is called Planting Day, right? This is the time for because of the flood and the silt and everything. This is a day for the farmers to, if they don't have any other obligations, maybe it's even just like a tax holiday, for everyone. Go out and spend money or plant the seeds to make more money later. So it's kind of an economic holiday. And so we can say Planting Day happens if we are on a 63-day cycle. Let's make a 63-sided die. It's on 58. I'm sorry, so that's off the chart, but let's just pretend I rolled something lower. Hello, it's Planting Day. Now, it is a work day, but this could be a special holiday where maybe no people work. Or because if it's just economic, it's a tax holiday. Then spend your money on Planting Day or invest your money in Planting Day because no taxes will be collected on transactions. And so farmers can go and buy seeds without having to worry about taxes or the like. And then we have, we have a local... because this is a monarchy, we have maybe a good king had a birthday, or it could be a day of death, a day of mourning. And so that happens. I'm just going to roll a 30-sided die to keep it within the limited window that we're developing. On day 25. So it's technically day 26. But this is... this is King's Day, if we want to call it as such. And we can even say that King's Day is a 2-day holiday. So these technically take place on work days. People may still work, but maybe they're just half days. Or on King's Day, it's a holiday, but people still work, but it's kind of like, it's like St. Patrick's Day. You gotta wear green. It's Halloween. People dress up. And so for King's Day, in celebration of this good king, maybe he was a good king because he went door to door. He went door to door in his royal robes. And he... if we have, like, headscarves and stuff that have coins and ribbons and all this, so maybe he wore very flashy, fancy robes. And so on this day, well, if we don't want to commemorate a death, or maybe it is. So he was killed by bandits, right? Oh, those nefarious bandits. But the king left instructions that the day after his death, the wealth that he carried in his cart should be distributed to the people, because that was spending money he took out every time he went to meet common people, right? He would give out alms, he would spend money in the markets, and so the money that he carried with him would be handed out. And so now we get something similar to chocolate coins, like Gelt during Hanukkah. Or we get people who dress up as kings, like kind of as costumes, as in royal costumes and colors. But they dress up kind of as ghosts. And it's kind of kind of like a trick-or-treat celebration. Where these coins, maybe they're just like little wooden coins painted like gold, they're painted yellow or something, are given out by different houses or different people, and there could even be contests. See, we're creating a world, we're creating a religion, we're creating lore, and we're creating a believable environment in which our heroes are going to be going through on this adventure. Yeah, Forgotten Realms uses 10 days. Blargle, I use 6. In my world, it's a 6-day. King's Day and Kin's Day, a celebration of the royals and then of the family. Hey, I like that. So we have King's Day and Kin's Day. I like that, TJ. Maybe he was a king that was big on family. Yeah, there we go, Emmy. I've got Detect Magic Charm. Okay, Orc, you're still building your list. That's good, good. Thank you all for providing some insight. Dorak, hey, welcome. Is that a Darude sandstorm? Yeah. So yeah, we're generating a timeline of events, and in this exercise, I want to point out that you're just not worried about tracking what a certain, like, an important NPC is doing, but also, you know, what's your villain doing? If nothing happens, what is the villain doing over the course of time that the timeline allows before the manifestation of the plan or the fulfillment? And honestly, if you're to do this for Tomb of Annihilation, you know, day 1 is, you know, the meeting where she gives you the quest. Day 2, well, it could even still be day 1 technically. She rests in a jungle bungalow with a friend of hers and hopes for the return of the party before she dies. And so her timeline, right, is pretty much going to be quest, rest. Every day is going to be rest until, I don't know, I'm just pulling an arbitrary number so I'm not spoiling things for people who want to play Tomb of Annihilation. Then death. And maybe she does nothing else but just rests because she's tired and she's growing weak from the soulmonger. And that's fine, because in a spreadsheet like this or on a document, you can create columns. You can track the patterns of what people are doing. And if it's a universal thing, again, make an encounter chart. At any point in time that the players are on the sea, you have a sea encounter chart. And if you have it on a D20, heck, 5 of those spaces, 1 through 5, are nothing happens. It's just smooth sailing. 6 and 7, a pirate event. 8, it could be beneficial. On an 8, they encounter a trade ship, and they might be able to find goods or services extra cheap. On a 9 or 10, there is a boat that is distressed and could use help. Maybe because of pirates, maybe because they are kind of awash on some rocks or a reef. You can make it up as you go along based on the presence on the map, but you know that they find someone in distress that they can help. That could be neutral, right? You could be helping someone and yay, we're good guys and we get good guy points. Or what if it was a ruse the whole time? And because it's been a while since you've had some combat and you want to make sure as the DM that your players are on their toes, yes, they rolled that they're encountering a sinking vessel. However, that's just the prompt. Instead, it was all a setup so that some people who live on a nearby island are going to spring up when the PCs go to try and help. If they do, they could just sail on by, right? And that's a moral decision that they can make with the information they have. So this, and by the way, you find both of these elements are married very closely in Tomb of Annihilation. It's done very well, where there's an overarching timeline, and then there are these random encounters based on where you're at. You know, for Tomb, it's in the jungle. Is it a certain part of the jungle? Is it wasteland? And the wasteland doesn't really matter if you're in the north or the south in Tomb, and it could very much be the same here. If the population is pretty well the same of people, of faiths, of cultures, of monsters, of climactic circumstances, then all you have to do is make a land-sea, because that's what we call the wasteland area, a land-sea encounter chart. And it doesn't matter if the PCs wanted to go from Findu, ride the river all the way here, and jump off, cross the desert, and now they're over here to explore these mountains, which maybe they do, then you can, they might still run into bandits because the same type of people are living in the same type of environment, and they still need the same basic things to live. The bandits do, right? Food, fuel for fires, treasure, things along those lines. Alexander, good morning to you. It's been a while since I've seen you. I hope you've been well. Welcome. It's great to have you here, Alexander. So I hope this exercise has helped you consider a way that you can plot an adventure. Because there's always room for notes in an Excel or in a document. If we have, so here we can get rid of this, right? Because we're not talking about the Tomb of Annihilation NPC. If every 7 days a new eye pops out as she's slowly turning into this beholder. She has one beholder eye. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 beholder eyes. She's out doing her thing. In fact, she's out trying to find a way to cure herself while collecting information, because that is that NPC's methodology, right? If we go back to, those are characters. Here we go. Our NPC. Right? This is her. Sage or Scribe was a notable librarian in the Great Library, spent much of her life researching before retiring. Because she retired after she obtained this eye, but as it started to manifest, she realized she couldn't be there anymore. And then we went on to say, okay, so now she's taken a part of the library and she's going city to city on the surface to sell books, lend books, buy books, and bring back, that kind of a thing, because she has some interactions with the PCs, right? So there's a history. They know her. But she's really looking for a cure to what's happening. And if we know it takes a certain amount of time for a wagon, right? So if she starts... so she has one eye, and she starts in lower Lomosh. And it takes 4 days to travel to Risha, but we know that she's slowly making her way this way, and eventually it will end up with her here because she is being drawn there by this eye that is changing her over time. And so, we can use that in the scale of the map or whatever, but we know that she starts there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 days, she is in Risha. And she will stay in Risha for 2 days. In fact, maybe that's just the arrival, but we don't count that. Who knows? So we go Risha. Then we say it takes 3 days to reach Findu. 1, 2, 3. She arrives in Findu and stays for, let's roll a d6. For 2. Additional, like aside from arriving. But now, even if she takes the rivers, and especially if the rivers... the rivers aren't going to have a flash flood here. So if we know under normal circumstances, it will take 10 days to go up the river. Then she is going to make progress on the river. 1, 2, 3. But the flash flood can sideline her for a day. So this could be 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now she arrives in... the name was effectively Marsh. This is where they grow reeds, the marshmallow plant, the papyrus reeds, and all that other stuff. So she arrives in Marsh, and she is going to stay for... We're going to roll 4d4 days. For 10 days. Marsha. So you get where this is going now, right? We can track her movement. Now, the PCs are probably not going to be, short of killing her, which I don't think they'd have a reason to do unless you're running for a group of murder hobos. They can interact with her, they can find her, and she can even give an approximate, I'll be here and I'm going to stick around for a few days in this location, and they can kind of figure it out. But this NPC has a gumption all to herself. And so they can interact with her, they can find her if they have a way to, if they go out and she says, the eyes are, she has like 3 eyes by this time. Because remember, if it's every 7 days, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, third beholder eye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? She's slowly converting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She leaves Marsh. Well, technically, she'd still be in Marsh. But if you wanted to layer this in first, she might leave Marsh before this other one that she hasn't accounted for with a disguise kit or whatever spawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6. And you can see our countdown timer. Our villain has already spawned all of his. And the villain is pretty much... going to be waiting here. There might be something he attends to that could be a clue that can help fill in details. So you can use the villain. The villain's pretty much in the waiting game and is just waiting for this mate, for this second eye to come, and they can combine together and become this old god or this old entity, this weapon. And with that, if you don't want it to be 2 beholders becoming 1 big one, maybe they each spawn 5. And you just extend the timeout. That's up to you. How would you want to run something like this? But you can see with all of the material we've already generated, it's not terribly difficult to just sit down and plot this out in a document or a spreadsheet. All of the player characters, as we've determined in our prompts, have connections to our NPCs and to our villains. Because our NPCs and villains were drawn from the character sheets. And so where there is action to be taken, one or more of the party members is going to take it up. And by the way, we actually generated 2 major NPCs and 2 major villains. So we really have several more columns to work into what's happening here. Daly says, I like OneNote. Is that a spreadsheet software? A tactical nuke with a real fireball. All right, so with this in mind as the inspiration, as showing you the methodology and showing where this campaign can go, I want to address one other point. We'll do it in the upcoming section here. But I want to address, how would your characters go about leveling up? If you're offering an open interaction with the story, you're offering an open environment that allows for travel and encounters, how would they advance? So, for example, if you think that the elder being, this combined beholder, this the thing that turned old Lomosh into the desert, is you want to make it whatever, for 17th level characters, right? You're just tickling epic. You can make it 20. It's really up to you. How do you get from starting at level 1 or whatever if they can travel anywhere? And you don't want it to just be, well, let's keep sailing around and grind EXP on pirates. Like it's kind of like a Final Fantasy random encounter like level up system. If you want to use milestones, what are ways that you can have milestones that could lead to the progress of the story in order to get to an appropriate level, right? By the time the characters reach Omu, if they ever do, because honestly, there's so much stuff you could do otherwise, but if they want to reach Omu in Tomb of Annihilation, the game suggests they are at a certain level. And how do you get there? Well, you could just, if you're playing with experience points, I guess you could always just grind for encounters every day in the jungle. That could be a perfectly viable way. You know, we don't really need to explore. Let's just get stronger, you know, fight dinosaurs and undead and all this other stuff, and just grind up, get stronger, and head straight there because for some reason you know how to get there. Maybe you do. Or if you don't want to use experience points, how then, with the milestone storytelling, could you see advancement in what occurs? But anyway, I'm going to get up and take about a 10-minute break. I need to refresh my drink. I'm going to get a snack, take a quick bathroom break, anything y'all need to do also, and let's meet back up here and discuss milestones.